What happened in that press conference felt like the first crack in the wall. Because for the first time all season, you could see it, the confusion, the hesitation, the weight on Raheem Morris's face as simple questions about the offense suddenly became complicated. And the moment he started answering, the room changed. Reporters asked him how the Falcons built their game plan for New York, and instead of confidence, instead of clarity, we got something else entirely. His words drifted, his sentences tangled, and you could feel the uncertainty leaking through every pause. He tried to explain the rise in play action, the shift under center, the sudden comfort Kirk Cousins had against the Saints, but his voice didn't carry the tone of a man in complete control. He spoke like someone searching for footing on a field that kept moving beneath him. He insisted the play action wasn't really an uptick, that pistol and under center were basically the same. He talked about hiding concepts, disguising gun looks, manufacturing pockets for Kirk, but the deeper he went, the more it sounded like a coach trying to justify something that didn't fully add up. And here's where everything turned. Because if the Falcons truly had a system built around both quarterbacks, then why have we almost never seen Michael Penix Jr. look as comfortable as Kirk looked against New Orleans? One quarterback gets a clean pocket, defined reads, and a scheme tailored to what he does best. The other? He's been thrown into chaos, pressure, and uncertainty since the moment his rookie season began. You can hear it in Morris's answer. You can feel it in the hesitation. You can see it in the tape. He talked about getting the best version of all our guys, but the reality is simple: the offense looks like two different playbooks depending on who stands under center. He praised the coaches for adjusting personnel groupings. He said the shifts weren't about Kirk. He said it was about getting the most out of everybody. But the truth sits right there between the lines: when Cousins plays, everything feels structured. When Penix plays, everything feels improvised. And the gap is becoming impossible to ignore. Then the question came, the one everyone in the building felt but nobody wanted to say out loud: where are the plays built for Michael Penix? Where is his comfort? Where is his version of this offense? Because if Kirk gets a system built around what he loves, how long can the Falcons keep pretending Penix is getting that same treatment? This press conference wasn't just a conversation. It was a warning sign. A spotlight. A moment where the cracks could no longer hide in the shadows. And it's only the beginning. The moment Raheem Morris started explaining the game-specific decisions, you could feel the story shifting again. Because the way he described their personnel choices, it didn't match what we've watched all year. He said this week's approach, the heavy 13 personnel, the shifting formations, the sudden creativity, was all tailored for this one opponent. It was game-specific. He talked about Van Jefferson lining up in places he usually doesn't. He mentioned tight ends being moved around like chess pieces. He praised the staff for pulling together a plan built for this matchup alone. And yet, something in his explanation felt off. Because if this truly was just a one-week experiment, then why did the offense suddenly look more controlled, more balanced, and more confident the moment Kirk Cousins stepped back onto the field? When reporters asked if Kirk came in with his own comfort preferences, Morris shut it down fast. He insisted they already had a system in place. A system built long ago, back when Cousins was originally brought to Atlanta. A system they supposedly carried into this season. But that raised the real question, the one nobody in the room dared to say out loud: if the system was already built, why didn't it look anything like this when Michael Penix Jr. was under center? Penix was thrown into a stripped-down version. Simple reads. Predictable looks. A scheme that felt more like a high school offense than an NFL blueprint. And Morris's answer didn't make it easier to believe. He said Kirk didn't have to tell them what he wanted, they already knew. They'd run this before. They understood the plays he loved, the protections he trusted, the concepts he thrived in. But then he admitted something without even meaning to: once Cousins started practicing again, he did give feedback. He did circle the plays he liked. He did explain what made him most comfortable. So clearly, adjustments were made. Clearly, the system wasn't frozen in time. Clearly, they changed things to fit Kirk. Which leads to the truth every Falcons fan already feels: the offense we see with Cousins is not the offense we see with Penix. And not because of talent. Not because of readiness. not because the rookie needs time, but because the coaching staff built comfort around one quarterback and left the other to survive on scraps. And here's the part that stings the most: before the press conference even started, before Morris spoke a single word, the signs were already there. You could see it in the play action. You could see it under center. You could see it in the rhythm, the timing, the confidence. You could see it the moment the ball was snapped. This wasn't just a game-specific plan. This wasn't just matchup strategy. This was a reminder, a loud, undeniable reminder, that the Falcons run two different offenses depending on who is behind the line. And now the cracks are no longer hidden. They're right there, on display for everyone to see. When the numbers finally came out, everything people had been arguing about for weeks suddenly became undeniable. It wasn't opinion anymore. It wasn't speculation. It was right there on the screen, bold, unforgiving, and impossible to ignore. Week 12. That one line at the bottom of the graphic told the whole story. Cousins under center, 50%. Shotgun, roughly 35%. Pistol, barely even used. Half the offense, came from a look the Falcons practically refused to run with Michael Penix Jr. Now go back through the previous weeks. Week after week, the same pattern hits you like a punch. Under center for Penix? 2%. 3%. Sometimes 0. The pistol? Maybe 10% at best. It was like watching two different teams play two different sports. The Falcons were willing to snap the ball under center 50% of the time when Cousins returned, but when the rookie was in, suddenly those plays didn't exist. Suddenly the coaches didn't need it. Suddenly the system looked rigid, limited, and stripped down to the point of predictability. And at that moment, the truth finally became too loud to hide. They were calling one style of football for Cousins and a completely different one for Penix. Not because the scheme couldn't change. Not because the personnel wasn't capable. But because the coaching staff chose not to do it. This isn't complicated. This is basic coaching logic, fundamental, universal, day one stuff. If you can design plays under center for one quarterback, you can design them for the other. If you can run play action for one quarterback, you can run it for the other. If you can build comfort for one quarterback, you can build it for the other. The numbers aren't lying. The tape isn't lying. The players aren't lying. Only the explanations are. And once you see the truth in the data, you can't unsee it. You can't ignore it. You can't pretend both quarterbacks have been given the same chance. This wasn't just a graphic. It was a spotlight on every decision made behind closed doors. A reminder that the difference between progress and struggle often starts with the plays being called, not the players lined up to run them.